when it goes, when silver goes, whether it's first, last, or in the middle, it goes the biggest of anything. There's just too much built up power in there. It's just been suppressed for so long. It's the most manipulated market in the world, not just the most manipulated metal. It's the most manipulated market that when it goes, we won't have to ask ourselves, okay, is silver going to outperform, or is it going to be there? We'll see it.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions. Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We have a returning guest that you're sure to recognize. This is Ted Butler. He's a long-time followed analyst in the precious metals and specifically the silver market. He's here with us again on Reluctant Preppers to weigh in on a recent expose that came out from the Department of Justice, of all places, actually charging that JP Morgan's gold and silver trading desk was a criminal enterprise and engaged in ongoing patterns of fraud against market participants that actually manipulated the precious metals markets for a period of over 8 years. Ted, thanks for joining us again here on Reluctant Preppers.
Thank you, Dunnigan.
You've been with us in the past talking with some knowledge about the information and analysis that you've done of JP Morgan's accumulation of physical silver holdings and other behaviors as far as a market participant and market maker in silver. Could you talk to us about this particular most recent charge by the Department of Justice that JP Morgan has been intentionally manipulating the price of the silver, as some have claimed in the past and others have denied? What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, it's big news. Anytime the Justice Department comes out with news announcements and the words, the terms they use, criminal enterprise and racketeering, RICO statutes. It's not minor news, and certainly the Department of Justice. It wasn't just some obscure announcement in the middle of the night on the wires. It was a full-blown presentation and a major announcement. So it's as the headlines indicate, and that's important in and of itself. The problem is, and I listened yesterday to an interview that you did with Bill Murphy, in which he was spot on in that once the headlines sort of fade a little bit on the DOJ's announcement, and you start to look into the particulars of what it is they were actually saying, there's a bit of a letdown because they're using these terms: criminal manipulation, enterprise manipulation, racketeering. Yet it's very narrowly focused on the single trade practice, illegal trade practice of spoofing, where traders enter orders, cancel them immediately, just designed to move the price up or down in a very short period of time, seconds, okay, not longer than minutes. So since that's been the focus, this spoofing, this very short-term manipulation that has been going on since at JP Morgan, since they took over Bear Stearns in early 2008, the headlines conjure up that this is a complete vindication for those like myself who've been claiming manipulation in the sense that the price, say at least since 2011, has been artificially depressed and put to the downside. And the Justice Department didn't say that. They're talking about spoofing, which is one of the many tools that the bad guys, the traders at JP Morgan and elsewhere, have used in their overall suppression and depression of the price. And that's, when you get into it, you're left feeling empty, because the Justice Department is throwing around all these charges, but they're not addressing the real charge, which is the suppression of the price by J.P. Morgan since 2011, certainly probably since 2008, but since 2011, J.P. Morgan has had a clear-cut motive that has driven them to lead the price suppression of gold and silver. And that motive is they started in 2011 to accumulate massive amounts of physical gold and silver, all while being the leading short seller, largest short seller on the COMEX, the paper market. And you can't find a better, clearer example of major market manipulation than the largest bank in America, most important bank in America, artificially depressing the price on the COMEX by heavy paper short sales, and the motive being, as they depress the price, they're going to be loading up on physical metal, gold and silver. And for the Justice Department not to see that, not to go after that, not to question that, is a sham. The Justice Department, so far, I mean, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but so far, they're putting a whitewash on something that's very serious. And I for one, I can imagine what the reasons are, but it's not right. It stinks.
Yeah, the scope concern is one that several articles that have come out about this touched on, and a lot of our viewers have been submitting questions about that. And specifically, it seems so, it smells so wrong, as you point out. It just seems like it's something's rotten there. It doesn't pass the smell test when there's a potential of a major criminal enterprise going on, and then the so-called sting or whatever just takes a few small fish, whether that's been in the drug business in the past or whether it's now in the financial arena. People have talked about, you mentioned one potential major conflict of interest on the part of JP Morgan, and that is to allow them to basically bash and stash huge hordes of physical silver. We'd like to talk a little bit more about the reality of that physical hoard next, but also people have pointed out that the U.S. government and other governments have a strong vested interest in maintaining the impression of the strength of their fiat currency and not letting people get the alarm bells going off. Can you talk to us briefly about that dynamic, about the potential for conflict of interest of governments wanting to not see higher metal prices?
Well, I think we may have discussed this in the past. I can't rule that out. I can't say that that's impossible. I haven't seen really strong evidence that that's the case. I'll give you, for instance, we did run up, almost 10 times in value in silver into early 2011 over a number of years. And we did run up to 1,900 in gold later on that year in 2011, and gold was 300 in 2000. So I don't know that there's a connection there. There may be. I'm looking at the hard evidence. The hard evidence is that J.P. Morgan has been, based on government documentation, the running flow of the Commitment of Traders report that comes out weekly, the bank participation report that comes out monthly, the flow of physical movement in the COMEX and then specifically the COMEX warehouse. The case is made strictly on J.P. Morgan being the bad guys, being a criminal enterprise, being crooks. That's what they do. It's why make it more complicated? Here they shorted, they bought paper so that they could buy physical. That's cut and dry. They've never lost. These sons of guns have never lost once when they've put on positions, short positions, on the COMEX in either gold or silver for the last 11 years, and I can prove that based on government data, concentration data in the Commitment of Traders report. The problem is that the data is so clear that JP Morgan owns physical silver and has been the biggest short. They're buying it on the cheap that they made cheap, never lost money on COMEX. It's all there. The Justice Department and the CFTC just doesn't want to go there. So if you're in a situation where you just don't want to address it because you can't, it's based on your own data, then you come out with these big announcements that, yeah, we're cracking down on spoofing and we're doing this and we're doing that to muddy the water, to take away attention from the real crime. So to go back and answer your question as to whether governments are doing this to protect the dollar or something like that, maybe, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these guys are, robbing the store. Okay, I'm not so sure who's putting them up to it. I don't really care who's putting them up to it. They're doing it. Them being JP Morgan. They're dirty, rotten crooks. I use other words, but it's Sunday morning. But I look at it that way.
That point you made in passing there about whether they're doing this with their holdings that they've amassed, whether they're held in their own name or not. I believe it was Blythe Masters, who was a representative for them several years ago, that claimed that that they hedge against physical holdings, but they do it on the request of and on the behalf of clients of theirs that are holders. You said you've got research that proves that it's their hoard, that they're manipulating the price and so on. And can you talk to us both about how we know that the JP Morgan themselves actually owns this silver?
Sure. I mean, it's a valid question. First of all, I'd point out with Blythe Masters, and we go back to this. I remember it on CNBC, this news clip. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was back around 2008 or 9 or 10 or some number like that. I allege that JP Morgan had only started to acquire physical gold and silver, or silver and gold, starting in April of 2011. So I think that the Blythe Masters things might predate the actual start, the initiation of the accumulation of physical silver and gold by JP Morgan. So I think she probably was lying anyway. Don't get me wrong, okay? But I think the evidence of physical accumulation only materialized well after that public appearance that she made, and she left the bank shortly thereafter, somewhat under questionable circumstances, whatever. But I don't want to focus on a particular individual. Look, the allegations that I'm making that JP Morgan is acquiring physical silver, basically one simple thing I can give you is that, including just yesterday, okay, or Friday, I should say, but all along, JP Morgan has been a prime stopper, taker, acceptor of physical deliveries on the COMEX via futures contracts. And just on Friday, they took 3,000 contracts of gold, COMEX gold, October gold contract, the equivalent of 300,000 ounces, which is about the most. It's a little bit more than that. I think they took 3,150 contracts. You're only supposed to take 3,000 as the limit, but they always go over it. But they took this gold, accepted delivery of it, okay, in their own house name, okay, in the name of JP Morgan. There's two ways you take or make delivery on a COMEX contract. You can either do it, a clearing firm has to do it, which JP Morgan is. They can either do it on behalf of customers and clients, or they can do it on their own behalf. Most of the silver and gold that's been delivered over the last several years, okay, on the COMEX that JP Morgan has stopped, a good portion of it, or a big portion of it, has been taken in their own name. So once you have to declare this with the exchange. We're taking this, in our own name. It's full disclosure. So that's one way you can do it. But the other point that these allegations that I'm making that J.P. Morgan has accumulated all this physical silver and gold. Look, there's no advantage to them that they would fully disclose this. They have the capability through their army of lawyers and lobbyists and accountants that if they choose to keep something private, and not disclose that in an open and transparent manner, they have the ability to do that. So you're not going to find on their annual statement or quarterly reports what I'm alleging. They know how to hide that. No one's better at that than them. But it's very easy to prove. Say for someone like the Justice Department, who seems to be investigating the wrong stuff, but investigating J.P. Morgan as far as manipulation of precious metals, they could find this out in a couple of phone calls. The FBI, part of the Justice Department, is the most qualified forensic investigation organization in the world. I would say within a matter of hours, they could discover, whether what I'm saying is true about J.P. Morgan accumulating this physical metal. They don't want to go there. They don't want to find the answer because I'm convinced that they know that it's correct and they can't address it. So having claimed that J.P. Morgan is crooked now publicly for 10 or 11 years, which there is a public record of that, and I say it twice a week in almost every article that I write, you would think it's just more than a passing coincidence that all of a sudden the Justice Department comes out and calls them a criminal organization and racketeering. Look, it's close enough. There's enough smoke there that I didn't come up with all these allegations out of the blue. I'm challenging the Justice Department, the federal commodity regulator, to look into this, to check this out. It's not right for me to make these allegations. I'm wrong. I shouldn't be allowed to, denigrate and slander J.P. Morgan with false accusations. I don't think they're false. I'm begging the Justice Department to either prove me right or prove me wrong. Either J.P. Morgan has done this or has not done this. It serves no one's interest to let it hang, to let it remain open. Nobody should be accused falsely of anything. And if I'm accusing J.P. Morgan of anything falsely, if you show me where it's false, I'll apologize. I'll retract it. I'll stop doing it from now on, but that hasn't happened.
That's interesting. So you've got the analysis you've actually done based on the documentation that you've used, and secondly, the fact that you've been publicly proclaiming this and not getting any of a cease and desist from either J.P. Morgan or officialdom as indicators that you're on target. So and you're a very public figure. You're very widely followed on this.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to publicly mislead anyone. That would be the worst thing in the world. I'm not, some kind of throwing Molotov cocktails just for the heck of it. This is serious stuff, serious issues, and they deserve to be addressed, not the way the Justice Department is doing it now with these stupid spoofing charges. The only reason they're bringing out these spoofing charges is that no one can collect, that any damages that were done affects hardly anyone, whereas what I'm claiming, if J.P. Morgan has depressed the price of gold and silver for a decade, which they have, and which I do allege, Man, there's more damages out there than that you can imagine. Every mining company, every investor that's lost money as a result of the prices being depressed, they would have a legitimate claim, okay, against JP Morgan if the Justice Department comes out and finds that they did what I'm alleging that they did. I don't know if JP Morgan, look, I understand. I don't know if JP Morgan could afford it if the Justice Department came out and said it. So maybe that's a motivation for the Justice Department not going all the way, not really doing their job and stopping well short of it, because, you know, you don't want to kill the patient, kill J.P. Morgan. But on the other hand, these guys are stone cold crooks, and they got to be made to stop.
We've got some related questions that have been submitted by viewers, and you've been good at following up several of those that I was going to ask. You've already answered. For example, Wendell Morse asked, in your opinion, is the current DOJ enforcement action merely window dressing or and an illusion of the investigation to allow for continued precious metals price maintenance, and a couple others like that. But one is an interesting one. Andy Innes asks, hi Ted, I have a question for you. I understand you claim JP Morgan is sitting on a huge stash of physical silver. Firstly, I've heard from several other well-known pundits like Craig Hemke, Bix Weir, and Jim Willey that JP Morgan is sitting on anything between 50 million to a billion ounces of physical silver. Obviously, this is an enormous difference between these figures. Can you tell us how much they are really holding? And second half is, are JP Morgan the custodians, but are they the owners?
The only way you're going to be able to tell what they're really holding is if someone goes in and forces a disclosure, and I can't do it. Nobody else can do it except perhaps the Justice Department. But my allegations, my calculations, I think they're up to 850, maybe 900 million ounces. But at least 850 million ounces of physical silver, and I'd say 25 million ounces of physical gold. And the physical gold, because of the price difference between silver and gold, is worth maybe 3 times what all the silver is worth. Even though the physical ounces, it's much more silver than it is gold. So those are my numbers. I mean, we could break down exactly what the components are and where they picked it up, but. That's my number, at least 850 million in silver and 25 million ounces of gold.
You've also, I think, touched on this one in passing. John Perricone asks, if JPM is the whale hoarding silver, being a publicly traded company, shouldn't everyone be able to see silver as an asset on their books, but it doesn't show on JPM's books?
Yeah, no, I mean, it should. It's like in a perfect world, yeah, that's what we're supposed to have public disclosure for. We should be able to see it. But there's like thousands, maybe tens of thousands of special entities, accounting entities that JP Morgan and any large money center bank is able, or financial organization is able to construct on their balance sheet, that if they don't want you to see something, you ain't seeing it. That's just the way it is.
Eric Benner asks, there have been stories in 1912 of a major gold deposit located in the Grand Canyon, now guarded by the military. What would happen to the price of gold if 40 million ounces of gold could be recovered?
I guess that would be. I don't understand I don't accept basically the whole premise of secret hoards and things like that. But look, if all of a sudden tremendous supply came on the market that was unexpected in any commodity, I'm a commodity guy. You'd have to say that's bearish for price. But I don't think I'd hold my breath waiting for such an announcement.
A couple of our viewers have asked, and I have to preface this by saying that we are not a financial advice channel and that we don't have our guests on here as financial advisors, but on a theoretical, what are the issues to consider standpoint, Wode Shaman asked, if Mr. Butler had about $1,500 to spend, would he buy 1 gold bullion coin or 75 silver bullion coins or buy mining shares? And what coins or shares would he buy and why?
Well, I'd favor silver over gold. I wear that. My heart is on my sleeve when it comes to that. I've always been silver oriented. No knock against gold. I guess if there wasn't such a thing as silver, then I'd probably be a gold bug. Diehard gold bug. But there is such a thing as silver, and I think that's the superior metal in terms of future price performance is what he's asking about. As far as mining shares, I understand, and I have a participation in mining shares, and so I'm not going to knock them. But I'm like you, I don't give financial advice, and certainly not specific advice about mining companies. The theory is the price of the metals go up, and the mining companies should do well. They're leveraged, and so there is merit to that thought. But if I had $1,500, I was going to put it away. I'd buy as much physical silver as I could, and not think about it, not look at it every day like I do. But it's easy. You do as I say. Don't do as I do.
We have a question from Michael C., who says, Ted, how do you see the declining mining ore grades of silver in grams per ton as low as 90 affecting prices in the next 5 years? And would this effect, if any, be magnified due to the declining energy return on invested EROI for crude, therefore adversely affecting mining?
Yeah, no, all these things are reality. It's not centered exclusive to silver or gold. Mining grades of every material have gone down. We found the easy stuff, the easy oil, the easy copper, the easy everything, and we have productivity increases, so we can process much more thinner ore, for lack of a better word, and have done it at a production cost that can allow for production to increase. But it's a long-term fact that the ore bodies and material bodies in the earth are not getting richer. They're being depleted. You got to measure the rate. So, but it's a favorable long-term thing, and oil is in there. Oil is a big component of life and manufacturing and mining. And I would look at oil, down the road beyond the fracking increases that we've had now as, also a diminishing resource that we need to either conserve, replace, etc. And it's hard to see all these things not putting upward pressure, price pressure on everything. There is a force based on depletion and increased production costs that will drive prices higher, all things being equal.
Joseph Giambra asks, in the case of a breakout like you're describing, will silver break out before the rest or after?
No, I don't know. It's a good question. That's like, tell me what the price is going to do next week. And anybody that ventures to do that, chances are he doesn't know what he's talking about, because it's impossible to predict such things. I will say this though. When silver goes, whether it's first, last, or in the middle, it goes the biggest of anything. There's just too much built up power in there. It's just been suppressed for so long. It's the most manipulated market in the world, not just the most manipulated metal, it's the most manipulated market, that when it goes, we won't have to ask ourselves, okay, is silver going to outperform, or is it going to be that? We'll see it. When that may be, you got to ask someone else.
John Perry-Cohn asks, with silver at these bargain prices heading into the apparent gold bull market, won't the paper price manipulation scheme be overrun like water busting over a dam?
Yeah, at some point, I think it's a much longer process than I would have imagined, and that's one of the good things about the Justice Department thing. It may help focus interest on it. The whole thing is a scam. It's a scam run on the COMEX where we have roughly seven or eight big short sellers, banks basically, that have worked to depress and cap and contain the price for 3-4 decades, and it's something that can't last forever. It will end. When it ends, it will end very abruptly, and we'll see that in the price. But when that abruptly occurs is hard to say. But yeah, if there's no time limitation, it could be tomorrow, it could be next month, it could be a year from now. I don't think we're talking many years from now. It's in a relative near term. There's a lot of water already under the bridge as far as this manipulation. All manipulations must end. This one's going on longer than anyone I can recall. And when it goes, it's going to get overrun. This is a stupid mechanism, and it's going to come, to the forefront before long.
There's a question about how big that pool of funds might be that would be trying to rush into metals at some point. BKBK says, Ted, they say that 70% of U.S. dollars are actually saved, spent, and borrowed and lent overseas. But no one really knows the figure. It's grown into a system of its own. I honestly believe it's much bigger. I suspect through fractional reserve banking and digital counterfeiting. When do you think these dollars will move into metal? Maybe at the lower bound of the euro-dollar deposit rates?
Generally speaking, there tends to be in net investment flows into assets that are rising in price. And because silver hasn't been rising in price recently a little bit, but not for the last 8 years, when we have, I don't know what the number is, at some number to the upside, investors collectively around the world, and I agree 100% that there's so much money out there, it's incredible, that when prices start to move is when people get excited and start to buy. So I think the catalyst is going to be just the price going up, which can be caused by any number of things. But when that gets rolling and the sea of money that's out there in the world seeks profit, seeks the best return, they come into everything. They've come into silver before. We've gone up to like 5-10 times in the price of silver, and we'll do it again. Only I think next time much bigger. We're building to a climax that is going to be quite historic in nature whenever it fully gets rolling.
I think you may have just partially answered this next question. Eli Redshirt says, I've been stacking for a couple years, but I was wondering, when silver shot up to over $40 an ounce, why didn't a lot of silver bugs sell? What may have been their thoughts, in your opinion? And if and when silver does rise back up, for example, to the same price or higher, what would be an example of a few game plans as to selling how much or when? I'm just trying to understand the reasoning and plans of holding silver as it rises to double what I paid for it originally.
Well, that's a very complicated question with no easy answer. When we went up to almost 50 back in 2011, it was a very short run. The whole thing was like 6-7 months or something like that, in which the price more than doubled. We didn't have enough time to get people on board. Okay, it was squashed. The rally was squashed, and by squashing the rally at the time, we never allowed for people to react to the higher price. It happened, was over before you kind of knew it. When the next time we go up, say to $50 or so, of course there's going to be those that be happy to sell. Maybe they're getting out even after waiting for a long time. Not that many people would buy at $50. It was only there for like a millisecond. So, but there'll be some perhaps selling as prices go higher. But I think on balance, just the way people are, human nature, there's going to be tremendous buying. People don't even care about silver. It's just going up. It's a great story when you sit down and study it and dice it and dissect it, and it's very compelling on an intellectual basis. But that's not what drives market. What drives markets are raw emotions and fear and greed. And when the thing starts to run, all this money is going to be motivated by greed and just plow into it simply because it's going higher. That's just what people do.
Okay, so then the flip side of that is for someone who has been a stacker and is holding at a significantly lower price point, what would be thought processes that occur to you that people could consider or strategies they should be thinking about in terms of during that blow off top that you're talking about?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, it's maybe you do it piecemeal. You don't pick one target. If you have a specific, I can tell you this: if you have a specific, investment goal, okay, whatever it is, pay off the house, pay the kids' college, but whatever it happens to be, you whatever, just put away a nest egg that and you'll turn not interested anymore once you hit that. Then obviously when you hit those specific financial goals, that then there's no reason not to cash in. You have to understand you're not going to get the top by any stretch of the imagination. So common sense. Why don't we deal with that when we get there? It's like I don't want to worry about it too much. It's like saying to yourself, "Oh my God, the taxes I'm going to have to pay if this thing goes up." That's not something to worry about. Let's worry about the here and now, and we haven't even started the run yet. But it is good to think ahead. You just want to be as rational as you can.
Hey, Ted, you've been great with our audience. If people want to find out more about your work, where can they find you on the web?
Go to Google, ButlerResearch.com.
And before we let you go, can you stick around for one more minute for a bonus question for our Patreon subscribers?
Sure.
Great. Thanks. We've been having Ted Butler, head of ButlerResearch.com, here with us on Reluctant Preppers. Ted, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, Reluctant Preppers, if you want to hear more of bonus footage from other guests we've had on, come on over right now to patreon.com/reluctantpreppers and access that bonus footage there. Take care.
With surprising new concerns expressed about Dunnigan's changing hairstyle, one viewer even commented that hair is dyed, fried, and laid to the side. But what you're not being told is Dunnigan's hair needs no dye thanks to the wonderful vitamin and mineral regimen that Melody recommends, and is not laid to the side to cover any bald spot either, since Dunnigan's full head of hair is exceptionally well attached. However, Dunnigan does use hair products only as a disaster prevention because he's at severe risk of catastrophic emergency situations. But although there may be some changes you don't like to hair, this is one kind of change you'll definitely want to have on hand if the situation gets hairy. Pure silver. And for a limited time, your first ounce of silver can be purchased at spot price with free shipping on orders over $99 by going to sdbullion.com/rp. And you'll be supporting Reluctant Preppers as well. It's within your grasp to get your hands on the perfect change for hairy situations at sdbullion.com/rp. P.S. Dunnigan was not harmed in the making of this video.